The Radio Forest Podcast.
Cy Curnin, welcome.
Nice to talk to you, Forrest. How you doing there?
I'm doing really good. I wanted to ask you a question at first about your style. You always look so good. Do you think that's the English, the Irish, or the French influence? Because it's not the American for sure.
I think my mother always had a clean shirt hanging up for me. I think my mother was French. It probably comes from there. She was pretty particular about the way we dressed.
Being famous throughout a couple of decades, if we look back, you look fine for the style of the time, but not so far ahead of the trend that it looks silly in 20 years. Does that make sense? That's got to be a tough thing to figure out.
Yeah, well, for me, there's a fine line between style and fashion. Once you know your own style, you stick to it and you maybe improve on it, but you stick to a theme. Fashion, you can end up looking like a victim really quickly.
That's a really good point. So it's more of your style and not necessarily fashion, but then you can be aware of fashion trends.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I like to look at it. I mean, I remember somebody once said, if you've worn it once in your life and it comes back around, do not wear it again.
Oh, like bell bottoms or?
Yeah. There's a style coming around again. Stay away from it. Like, can you imagine if we started wearing big shoulder pads now?
I would love it, yeah. That'd be great. We're talking to Cy Curnin from the band The Fixx. They've got a brand new album, Every 5 Seconds. I know you guys played with Depeche Mode at least once in England in 1980. You guys shared the same bill.
Yeah.
Did you know keyboardist Andy Fletcher at all?
I did. I'm so sad to hear of that. I was just talking, I had fond memories of, we did a festival in Italy, in San Remo, right after that date you just mentioned, and we sat there and emptied the bar till 4 a.m. And I remember him being such a sweet guy. He was very interested in the keyboards that Rupert was playing in the band. And they were just enjoying their success and not pretentious in any way. There was a lot of pretension around that at time. A lot of bands were like, oh, you had half a hit and they thought they were the kings of England. But not those guys. They were really charming. My heart sunk to my knees when I heard that.
The keyboard is super important to the Depeche Mode sound and the Fixx too, but those guys aren't like the frontmen. It's not like, oh, that's a keyboard band, but if you didn't have it, that feeling of the songs would evaporate. It'd be really weird to hear a song that didn't have that subtle influence. It kind of sets the mood.
Yeah, it's like a soundscape. If you were to describe what a lot of the keyboard sounds can do, it's the night sky, it's the lighting of a song. It's these kind of subtle rhythms that pass through the changes in the chords. They're not necessarily playing the chords, but they do create an atmosphere. So without that, it would definitely be a naked event, that's for sure.
Now, to keep being a huge downer, did you also happen to know Yes drummer Alan White?
Yeah, I did. Another sad day for that. But a good friend of mine, Mark Mancina, who known for his Lion King soundtrack, he did produce an album for Yes some point. So I was just talking to him. He was super saddened by it all. They just kept dropping. I guess that just makes us realize we need to celebrate the moment because you never know what's in store for any of us. All humans, we're so busy arguing over things that are completely meaningless in the scheme of things that we need to sort of find the love and just bring back some true depth to the moment that we're all in. So you got to live as if it's the last 3 minutes of your life. Look at it consciously that way. You'd be like, I love you. I love you.
Yeah.
Remember me this way. I love you.
You guys got the new album, Every 5 Seconds. You finally recorded Lighthouse.
We finally found the moment, yeah. It took a while. It was time. We found the right groove. We found the right moment in the studio. And I think the times that we're living in required a lighthouse to bring us home from the storm we're all experiencing. So even more important to put that on an album now.
But that's been the hidden gem of the Fixx for a long time. You guys would only play it live. There was some like bootlegs from live festivals you might do, but it was a crowd favorite. Explain why it never ended up on record and why now was the time. Like you just kind of mentioned it. It kind of felt like it was right. But, how old is that song?
Yeah. Well, I think that song first aired in 1997, 98, and then we played it for a couple of seasons. And then you're right, it fell through the cracks, and then life changed. We were writing a different style, and by the time we came around to the writing for this record, like I say, the times just seemed to fit the lyric. It was all about the lyric, and I remember my grandfather telling me about the lighthouse near where they lived. It would flash around every 5 seconds, and the ship's captain would know his way home. So I keep looking at the times we're living in as a storm, and this every 5 seconds, just look for this light. And then every 5 seconds, it's your breathing, it's your heartbeat, it's the people closest to you that you would, what would you grab if you only had one thing to grab? You'd grab your loved one, maybe yourself, but something close to you. So that's what we wanted to convey with the song, and here we are.
So that's the title. That's where the reference comes from, every 5 seconds. I wanted to ask because there's a band that has an album called Every 6 Seconds, and I had heard that was how often men think about sex. And then listening to this album, I don't think that's what Cy and the guys are going for.
Yeah. No, it's just to do, the balance between betterment and bewilderment. Your mind is constantly searching for acceptance. Did my mum love me? Do I love myself? How do I love, it's not so much sex, it's connection, sense of being. We're like a balloon that we never tie the knot in. We blow air in, we blow air out. We blow air in, air comes out. But if you tie the knot, you suffocate. But you have to keep it flowing with belief, trust, love.
We could do a whole show just about people that have covered the Fixx or put them in movies. Interesting cover that I had heard was the band Powerman 5000 covered One Thing Leads to Another. What was your impression of that, and did you hear it before it went public, or did they release it and then you heard it?
Yeah, they released it and then I heard it. It just amazes me how I was able to mouth those words out and sing them rhythmically. Because when you hear someone else singing them, and I'm wondering, are they thinking the same thing I'm thinking when I'm singing them? How is the cadence working? But it was a real honor. You kind of think, oh, it's like an out-of-body experience, because that song is very much the calling card of the Fixx. So when people start covering it, it's like, yeah, thank you so much. It's like a tip of the hat.
The video for One Thing Leads to Another, was that tunnel that you're in, was that constructed on set? Because I think at one point in the end it might open on the side, but for the longest time I thought maybe that was like a real tunnel, or was that fabricated on set, I guess is my question. Yeah,
it was just fabricated on set by some worthy carpenters who just created a sort of I would say maybe a 25-yard tunnel diagonally across a hall. In those days, they would use video cameras where you could just really pump up the white balance on it, so it would really blast the white light that was in the tunnel so you wouldn't see the edges. And it just became an endless tunnel at that point.
Now, let me switch tracks real quick. What would you say is difficult about hiking that people don't expect to be difficult?
You always pack the wrong things.
What kind of wrong things have you fallen for in the first couple of times?
Well, suddenly you think that you're going to need to change this, that, and the other. You may need to burst into sort of like some nice resort wear halfway up the hill when really all you want to do is just flop down in the same clothes you've been in for a week, and maybe you should have had one more pack of wet wipes.
So how many pairs of socks would you take, say, for like a 5-day to 6-day trip? Can you make one pair last, or do you have a new pair each day?
Yeah, if you use wool socks, you can take one pair because they don't hold the moisture, so then they don't get stinky. And then you just hang them up and dry off. And then if you've got a pair of flip-flops hanging on the side of your bag, you put those in for the warm part of the day, and then you really like your socks when it gets cold.
How did your music end up in Breaking Bad? Was that done by the management of the band, and you're like, sure, sounds good, I don't know what that is? Or was it more of a, wow, this is huge, yeah, we'd love to be a part of that?
Yeah, I think that was the directors of the show were looking for various music throughout the series, and we were lucky enough to have that moment when they were in the car wash in Breaking Bad, and I thought it was quite apropos when they're trying to look for ways of stashing the cash, and we're singing Saved by Zero in the background.
Yeah.
The precursor to Ozark, in a way.
You know what? It really does have that feel. I never put that together.
The couple just growing with their own like small crime turns into this enormous crime, and it's like, what would you do with all this? You're ending up just covering the lie. They
sort of fall into being criminals, and they're good people in the beginning of the show, and you sympathize with them, but at the end, they're so bad, you're like, I don't know if I could be that. Are these the anti-heroes?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we all look at it because it's the temptation. We're all like, ooh, what would you do if you had more money? And what would you do for more money? And then, I didn't realize that my conscience would really be able to tolerate with so much deception. And then all of a sudden, you're like, I can't take it anymore.
Your tour is kicking off pretty soon. Has the band gotten together for full-fledged practices and warm-ups yet, or how does that schedule look when you get ready to go out on the road again?
Yeah, we're in rehearsals right now. I'm in London talking to you from London, and we've been in rehearsals for a couple of weeks. we break tonight, and then we start up rehearsing again in LA just to check that the gear's working and the last few production rehearsals, and off we go.
How come the rehearsals are in England? Because I believe you live in California, right? Or do you have a place over there too?
Yeah, no, I live in California, but the rest of the guys live here, so it's easier to get one guy to move to the rest of them for a longer extended period of time. Plus, I get to see my family. And then we all move over there. Everybody flies over to get over the jet lag a few days before the first date. And so it works best that way, really.
Cy, we've got the new The Fixx album, the first one in about 10 years. But you had a solo release, like 2 years ago? Did those overlap at all, the new Fixx and your solo stuff?
No, well, kind of, when I write songs, I know what is a Fixx song. When it just sort of, it feels like a Fixx song very early on. So there are some times when I'm writing a song that I think, oh, this is one I should finish for myself. I do enjoy putting a couple of solo releases out there. Didn't really overlap with the recording because I did it during the lockdown and we'd finished the recording for the Fixx by then. I just felt I wanted to get some traction, get these songs out of the house, as it were, and put them to work, because a song is nothing if people can't hear it. It's just, if a tree falls in the forest, no pun intended,
yep,
does it make a sound?
Every 5 Seconds is not about sex. It's the new album from The Fixx. Lead singer Cy Curnin. Cy, appreciate it. Thanks for the call and good luck on the tour.
Thank you very much, Forrest. I'll talk to you soon.